Please join me in welcoming Rear Admiral Chad Carey.
Thank you, Kim. Welcome to NOAA's Aircraft Operations Center, home of NOAA's hurricane hunters, which you can see directly behind me. These flying meteorological data collection machines are one of the most important tools we have to better understand hurricanes. The data collected using NOAA aircraft improve hurricane track and forecast intensity forecasts by as much as 20%. This year, the P3 are celebrating 50 years of service thanks to the talented professionals that operate and service them, as well as our stakeholders that support us. Despite their age, they are equipped with state-of-the-art technology inside and out, making these aircraft highly capable tools for observing hurricanes. An additional aircraft that's not here with us today, but is part of the observation suite, is the high-altitude Hurricane Hunter, which is a Gulfstream 4. The Gulfstream flies at 45,000 feet, flying above and around hurricanes to observe and detect weather systems, such as steering currents that affect the cyclone below. The P3s behind me fly at about 10,000 feet through the eye wall of a hurricane using turboprop engines, a long-standing proven technology in one of the world's riskiest flight environments. The aircraft carry a suite of specialized instrumentation used to help us better understand and forecast hurricane intensity, structure, and the hazards that impact the communities in the path of these storms. For example, the P3's tail Doppler and lower fuselage radar systems scan the storm vertically and horizontally, giving scientists and forecasters a real-time, three-dimensional look at the storm that no other aircraft can obtain. These are the only aircraft in the world equipped with tail Doppler radars. Wingtip sensors measure water and ice content within hurricane rain bands that work to improve rainfall forecasts. And at the same time, additional instruments are capturing ocean surface winds, precipitation structure, 3D winds, and ocean wave heights in better detail than ever before. NOAA's ability to adapt the Hurricane Hunter aircraft configuration and test new instruments helps us deliver even new, more valuable information to the forecasters, while also being a flying test laboratory for rapidly evolving technology. One technological advancement to note is deploying uncrewed aircraft from these P3s into the storm environment. These drones, launched from the P3s, can dwell for long periods of time in the vertical profile, collecting essential low-altitude data on tropical cyclone structure. Last year, for the first time, one achieved a record-setting 120-minute flight duration and provided the first-ever video from an uncrewed aircraft system from inside the storm. From the ports around the Gulf and East Coast, NOAA also deploys autonomous uncrewed marine systems to intercept these storms and gather critical ocean observations. All of the data collected by our aircraft and uncrewed systems is provided to the meteorologists at NOAA's National Hurricane Center. This real-time data allows them to constantly refine the forecast, helping them to keep people safe, allow communities to prepare, and minimize unnecessary evacuations. While technology continually advances, the most valuable resource that operations rely on today is our dedicated team of technical professionals and NOAA Corps officers. They are crucial for operating and maintaining our aircraft, and they are part of NOAA's team that is dedicated to serving the public. Today's annual Atlantic Hurricane Outlook is one of the many ways the agency offers to encourage the public to prepare ahead of and throughout the hurricane season. I would now like to introduce our next speaker. This individual has been a scientific leader in weather prediction for most of his professional career. Please join me in welcoming NOAA's 12th Undersecretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmospheres and the NOAA Administrator, Dr. Neil Jacobs.
Thank you, Admiral Carey, for that introduction, and also thank you for hosting this event. I would like to express my deepest appreciation to the team here at AOC, the Hurricane Hunter pilots, the crew, the maintenance folks that maintain these planes. We're here to announce NOAA's 2026 hurricane season outlook, but before I get to the numbers, I want to recognize the incredible efforts and expertise and dedication of the NOAA's workforce. NOAA is home to the world's leading scientists, model experts, and meteorologists. Their work ensures public safety, national security, and enhancement of the U.S. economy. In the National Weather Service, we have forecasters that issue accurate forecasts across the country 24/7 for all types of severe weather. I know we're talking about hurricanes today, but they're working all year long. Winter storms, tornadoes, floods, wildfire events. All the models that we run at NCEP, the National Center for Environmental Prediction. This includes the National Hurricane Center. I'd love to thank the National Hurricane Center for their excellent work, particularly last year where they set a new record in forecast accuracy for intensification. Hurricane Melissa was accurately predicted to rapidly intensify before the storm even developed. We also have NOAA research. This is where the numerical weather prediction is developed. These are the folks that develop the models. We have the Hurricane Analysis and Forecast System, or HAFS, which is going to be our flagship model this year for cyclone intensity. They also work on cutting-edge development of instruments. This includes the drones and the gliders. We're now getting into the world of running artificial intelligence-based forecast models. This work's being developed there too, as well as the work at Hurricane Research Division, which advances our understanding of rapid intensification of these storms. We have the National Ocean Service, which develops the coastal and ocean models, obviously essential to understanding sea surface temperature and air-sea interaction. They also manage the ocean observing systems, ensure the waterways and the ports are open after a storm. We have NESDIS, the branch that handles NOAA satellites. We have geostationary satellites, which are the GOES, which you're probably familiar with the visible satellite imagery of these hurricanes, and also the infrared. But we also have low Earth orbiting satellites with JPSS. This is where the microwave sounders come in. This is the data that drives a lot of the numerical weather prediction models. We also have the Marine Aviation and Operations, as well as the NOAA Corps, the folks which you see here today. They're in charge of the ships, the planes, all the data collection, not just for hurricanes, but also fisheries management, among other things. Behind me, we have the two P3s, Kermit and Miss Piggy, celebrating their 50th anniversary of flying into storms. These are 8 to 10 hour flights. They have the tail Doppler radar, which you just heard about. They deploy dropsondes. We also have a high altitude jet, and we're bringing another 2 online here soon. These are the planes that fly over the storms and deploy instruments through the storms. All this data goes into the computer models to better generate our forecasts. I'm incredibly proud of the amazing work that these public servants do for our country. Okay, on to the numbers. For the Atlantic hurricane season, NOAA is predicting a below normal season for 2026, with roughly a 55% chance of being below normal, a 35% chance of near normal, and a 10% chance of above normal. This equates to 8 to 14 named storms with winds at or above 39 miles an hour. Of these, 3 to 6 hurricanes with winds at or above 74 miles an hour, and 1 to 3 major hurricanes, that's your category 3 to 5, with winds at or above 111 miles an hour. In the Central and Eastern Pacific, we're expecting a 70% chance of above normal activity. The Eastern Pacific, we're expecting 15 to 22 named storms, 9 to 14 hurricanes, 5 to 9 major hurricanes. And in the Central Pacific, we're expecting 5 to 13 tropical cyclones. These percentages are based on multiple factors that represent a probabilistic distribution, which includes a lot of information. But even though we're expecting a below average season in the Atlantic, it's very important to understand that it only takes one. We have had Category 5s make landfall in the past during below average seasons. What's driving this forecast is largely an El Niño event. There's a 98% chance of El Niño conditions occurring later this season, and an 80% chance that this El Niño will be moderate to strong. In the Atlantic, the El Niño increases the vertical wind shear, which disrupts the outflow at higher levels. It makes it harder for development of the eastern waves coming off of Africa to strengthen into storms. However, in the central and eastern Pacific, the El Niño reduces the vertical wind shear, essentially the opposite of the Atlantic, which is why we're expecting above average season in addition to the warmer sea surface temperatures there. We have several new observing systems that we're bringing online this year. As you heard about earlier, we have uncrewed aircraft systems. We tested these over the last couple of years with Black Swift drones used operationally this year for the first time in the HAFS model. The tests that we ran in the experiments last year showed that the inclusion of this data from these drones increased the intensity forecast accuracy by roughly 10%. We also have uncrewed surface vehicles and submersible gliders. In addition to the observing systems, we're doing a lot of work on the modeling front. We're introducing an AI-based version of the GFS, as well as an AI global ensemble forecast system, the hybrid GEFS. We also have a new AI-based hurricane forecast model that we've developed in partnership with Google DeepMind, which we used experimentally in last year's hurricane season. There are also advances in the physics-based models. The Unified Forecast System has been testing an experimental high-resolution seasonal forecast system. We also have the Office of Water Prediction, which will be rolling out high-resolution flood inundation mapping, which couples to the hydrological forecast. This provides the emergency manager's visualization of predicted inundation at the street and neighborhood level. The Hurricane Center has some new communication products as well. They're implementing a new version of the forecast cone, which was tested last year. This cone includes tropical storm and hurricane watches and warnings in inland areas. We're also issuing new products and services in support of storm surge forecasting for the Hawaiian Islands. Lastly, the Hurricane Center is testing an experimental version of even a newer cone. Since 2007, the cone has been based on absolute track error, but this new experimental cone accounts for forward motion and directional or lateral uncertainty. This is a much better way to independently visualize uncertainty in both direction and timing. For the official forecast guidance, go to hurricanes.gov. June 1st is almost here. Be ready, have a plan, listen to your state and local emergency managers. Preparation is essential. You can learn more at ready.gov. For more on storm preparedness, I'll now welcome National Weather Service Director Ken Graham.
Thank you, Dr. Jacobs. Some great information there for everybody, and highlighting some big improvements going forward. So it's a very exciting time. So just thank you, and thank you, Admiral Carey, as well. So just saluting this incredible team behind us. And I just wanted to definitely echo what Dr. Jacobs said, just saluting the employees of NOAA, just an amazing group. I don't know, every day I seem to be more humbled to be at the helm of the Weather Service, and just looking at the whole crew here in blue and others supporting this mission. We can't do it without you, so just a big thank you. Great to be here at AOC. Just an amazing place, a lot of operations, but I definitely want to thank somebody that's here on stage. This is our lead seasonal hurricane forecaster, Matt Rosencrans. These numbers, right? They're just not, just generated by random. There's a lot of science that goes in to these numbers every single year. So I want to thank Matt and your team for everything that you've done, and also congratulate Matt, because this will be his last seasonal outlook, as he's going to our lab to train the next generation of Outlook scientists, which is absolutely amazing. So I'm glad to have him in the test bed training the next generation. So he's absolutely amazing, and he's here with his dad. His dad put your hand up there. So congratulate both of them here for such a great job and all these years of service. So seriously, being able to train the next generation is a huge thing. But on behalf of NOAA, the Weather Service, and quite frankly, the American people, thanks for your service. Just absolutely amazing amount of work over the years. So it's great to be here, and I really salute the aircraft operations folks. Wow. I got to fly in to Hurricane Helene and one of these, I'm not sure which one behind me, I didn't look where they were parked, but it was an amazing experience, but just an incredible mission. Heroes, honestly. They go towards the storm so we can get people away from the storm. This is quite simple as that. So what you all do is just amazing. We can't do it without you. So we've never been more prepared for hurricane season as we are now. Dr. Jacobs highlighted some of the new models, the new technology, the service improvements. So it's absolutely amazing. Looking at the new cone from the National Hurricane Center, just saluting everyone there, always progressing, always going forward, just being able to have the inland effects, just the cone doesn't stop. The impacts don't stop at the coast. The impacts go way inland, and we've seen that over and over and over again, including most of the fatalities end up being inland as well. So as a result, looking at a cone that highlights all those inland threats is a big step forward for the public to understand what these threats are. And Dr. Jacobs also talked about the experimental cone. I mean, you almost got to retrain yourself a little bit, because we always talked about the last 5 years of error, and 67% of the time the center stays in the cone, 1/3 out. Anyway, we've got to retrain ourselves. It's okay. So having this new cone, I think, is a big step forward to actually represent about 90% of the possibilities of where the center could be. I think is a big leap forward. So kudos to that new representation of it. I do want to announce as well, with the flood inundation mapping that Dr. Jacobs mentioned, by the end of September, we'll have 100% of the country covered. This was a long effort. And a lot of you in the media know this is a game changer, and I hear it from the states, I hear it from the counties, I hear it across the board, across the country. They said, hey, this is a game changer for us to be able to represent what could flood in a storm, or even a thunderstorm or a hurricane or whatever it may be. So that is a huge step forward. And you heard the forecast for the Pacific, so having those services for Hawaii for the first time ever, we're going to be able to issue storm surge watches and warnings for Hawaii, for most of the islands, the main islands of Hawaii, just like we do for the mainland, Puerto Rico as well, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So that is a big leap forward as we really look at potential tropical surge flood mapping and all that for the Hawaiian Islands. So just really excited about that. The other tool that is new, and this one's exciting as well, getting some really good feedback on this one, it's the Urban Rain Rate Dashboard. So it's a new tool that we're really launching this year to look at urban areas, cities. There's 60 cities represented, and ahead of time you'll be able to see what the dangers are from flooding. Actually look at the information in those urban areas that are particularly dangerous for flash flooding, as the runoff isn't there, so you can get flash flooding really quick in these urban areas. So please check out all of these new products and services and everything into this season. It's exciting. So look, preparedness. We've got to do it early. I don't know, it's a nice day. Hangar doors are open. Now's the time to start thinking about your Hurricane Preparedness Day. The sun is shining. Let's get it done. So early preparedness is absolutely everything, period, end of story. The actions that you take today really get you ready for the hurricane season. So we're ready, right? We're ready. So we need to get the American public ready as well. And don't let words like below or average, don't let all those words change the way you prepare. And Dr. Jacobs, you said it just takes one. And you go back in time, I can think of some of these. Betsy was a September storm in 1965, and Louisiana still talks about Betsy. You think about 1983 is an August storm, Alicia, still talking about Alicia. 1992, Andrew was an August storm as well. So even in below average, even if you have a few storms, they could be big ones. So we got to be ready. The other, I'm going to repeat this every single time I do this, is the fact that, I think not just officials, but the public thinks the big storms are going to come across the Atlantic. You're going to see them. You're going to have weeks' notice, plenty of time. That is not the case. And this stat hit me when I was at NAC. It hit me. I never forgot it, and it still hits me today. Looking back in time at our records, every Category 5 that's made landfall in this country was a tropical storm or less 3 days out. So they rapidly intensify, they get here quick. So everybody, you think you might have a week on your timeline. The reality is you may only have days. That's why that preparedness early is absolutely everything, and I will repeat that in this position, next position, retirement. I don't care what it is over the next 20 years. I'm going to keep repeating that stat constantly. The other one, too, is especially a season like this, there'll never be a Hurricane Justa. We'll never make that a name. There's no such thing as just a Cat 1, just a tropical storm, just a Cat 2. That is absolutely not the case. It doesn't matter what it is. You got to look at the size, the forward motion. Little wiggles matter on the impacts. Even the smallest storm, if it's slow enough and big enough, is going to create catastrophic flooding and storm surge. All right? There's no such thing as Hurricane Justa. We've got to make sure the public pays attention to every single one of these systems and the actual impacts, not the category, not the name, but the actual impacts associated with that storm. And that includes the tornadoes, heavy rain, damaging winds, even the high surf and rip currents as well, including the storm surge. So flooding, we got to talk about flooding. I mean, we just got to keep repeating over and over the dangers of flooding. So you look at the last 10 years, over half of the deaths are flooding, and a lot of those are inland, and most of those are in vehicles. So we know what's causing the fatalities. So we've got to get the word out. We've got to get the preparedness out. We need everybody's help to be able to do that. So being able to look at where you live in a flood zone and be prepared for that, and where you got to go in the evacuations, getting ready, getting your home ready, looking at that evacuation plan. And I don't think the public totally realizes 6 inches of fast-moving water will knock you off your feet. 12 inches will carry most cars away. And even people that think I got some big, giant SUV, well, guess what? About a couple feet of water will wash that one away too. It doesn't matter. So we've got to keep reminding people of these things. Turn around, don't drown. We've got to keep reminding everybody of that. Develop that evacuation plan now. And I think the big thing is, please, you heard it already said by Dr. Jacobs, please listen to those local officials. A lot of people say they don't evacuate because they don't want to sit in the traffic or travel 200-300 miles, when the reality is they may only have to go 10 or 20, 30 miles inland. Please listen to the local officials. You have to understand what you have to do ahead of time and have that plan. Begin planning early and being able to do that. Check on your neighbors, check on your family. Make sure to have that preparedness kit for weeks ahead of time. Make sure you got days, if not a week, of supplies ahead of time. Right now there's no lines. Stock up. Stock up now. That's what I would do. It's a perfect time to go get that information. The non-perishable food, medicine. The last winter storm event really opened my eyes on something. There were a lot of fatalities for people that didn't account for medicine and dialysis. We have to remind people over and over, you're not going to have access to those things for a week or more after a storm. They have to be prepared for these things. So any special needs like that, we got to remind them, be ready, because those are preventable if we can get them ahead of time. And also make sure we account for the pets. Too many heartbreaking stories after these events, seeing the pets wandering around. Got to account for the pets going forward. So planning on no electricity for weeks. Make sure to have that, the radio, the flashlight, the NOAA weather radio, still the greatest tool. Have it. We got it. It'll alert you. It'll get the information when you need it. A couple of places to get information: the National Hurricane Center. Go to hurricanes.gov. Get the latest. That's part of the story, maybe the biggest. Have the latest information. That forecast changes. There's something called, there's an old term, when you look at the first forecast, you lock onto that. There's some social science that says that you can't lock onto that first forecast. You got to pay attention to it. It can change with time. So got to go to hurricanes.gov, get the latest. Go to weather.gov. The forecast offices across the country getting the information out going forward is huge. And also ready.gov. We'll hear more about that here in a little bit with FEMA. And listo.gov, para información sobre la tormenta en español. So there's information to get in Spanish as well for the Spanish-speaking community. Listen to those local officials, and I'm going to wrap this up. Look, even after the storm, it's still dangerous. I need the media's help, right? People think the storm's passed, I'm all safe. You're not, right? The indirect fatalities associated with these tropical systems usually exceed the direct. What a statement. So they exceed the direct. So that's everything from down power lines, displaced wildlife, that's contaminated water, gas leaks. This is harsh, but it's real, and I say it every time. After a storm, it's not the time to read how to use your chainsaw for the first time. These are the realities of what we deal with. We see what hurts people, and that we need the media to keep reminding people. Generator safety, I will also scream and yell as loud as I can about the generator safety. After Hurricane Laura, with a 18-foot storm surge, Mike, we lost more people to generator safety than we did the storm surge. We've got to keep reminding people to use generators safely, outdoors, away from your windows. So we're ready, folks. We're ready more than ever at NOAA for the hurricane season. We need everybody to be ready as well. I'm going to give a chance for FEMA here to hear from FEMA. So we're lucky and fortunate here, excited to have Region 4 Administrator from FEMA, Rob Ash.
Hey, good afternoon, folks. I'm really excited to be here today to spend a little bit of time talking to you about FEMA and what we're doing in preparation for the upcoming season. I'll start first by saying that the partnership that we have with NOAA, with the Hurricane Center, those are extremely important partnerships that we maintain. All year long we work closely together, but we really start to ramp up during this time. Some of the things that you heard here today talked about in terms of changes in technology and the ability to see a little bit further out are really important to us at FEMA because it gives us the ability to start our planning process much further than we used to do just 3 to 5 years ago. So now we start looking at storms that are coming off of the coast of Africa 144 hours out at a minimum. We start watching them well before then, but we really start looking at planning and getting ready that far out, and that's the whole organization, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We also make sure that we don't lose sight of the rapidly intensifying storms that you just heard about. Those are the ones that are really scary because we don't have as much time to prepare, but we have greater awareness now and we can start earlier on those, and so it does give us an opportunity to begin that work within FEMA, across other federal agencies, and definitely with our state partners. I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing at FEMA, and I'll do that in terms of kind of 3 tiers. At the highest level, the national level, we start with the guidance that we get from Secretary Mullins, and it is clear to us that he wants us to be focused and ready for this upcoming hurricane season. At the next level, we have FEMA headquarters at the national level, if you will, where my boss, Bob Fenton, has a variety of things that are on the menu now for us to be able to prepare at the national level. And that's not just us, say, here in Region 4, but it's also other regions that are impacted by hurricanes, Region 6, Region 3, even Region 9, which has responsibility for Hawaii and some of our territories. So we're working at multiple levels to make sure that we're focused and we're ready. Within this region, Region 4, our focus is the same as it is every year. We have a very deliberate process that starts months out in terms of the things that we need to do in order to be ready as a regional team. That team includes our state partners. Nothing that we do is not without our state and our tribal partners. So we work very closely with them. We have a series of exercises, of rock drills or rehearsal of concept drills that allow us to anticipate, prepare, and identify gaps in our resources so that we can make adjustments when the time comes. The last thing that I'll say is that emergencies or disasters are locally executed, they're state managed, and they're federally supported. So FEMA understands that we have a vital role in ensuring that we're going to be there for Americans on their worst day. But we also understand that we don't supplant the state, and we have tremendous partners across this nation who are ready and who have the ability to go out and take care of their citizens. So one of the things that I definitely want to make sure that we do as I transition to a close here is make sure that folks understand it is important to listen to and heed the advice that is given by your local authorities. They're closest to your specific area. They're the ones that are able to understand the details of what's happening inside of your county, inside of your city. So please start there. Make sure that you heed the advice and the warnings that you get from them. You will get plenty of early warning from other places. You'll get assistance from FEMA in terms of things that you can do to be ready for the storm. You've just heard ready.gov, and it's an excellent place to start. And it allows you to look and see what are some of those things that you need to start doing in preparation. And in terms of preparation, there's preparation for yourself inside of your own home, but also preparation where you're looking to see, are there elderly family members or friends that you might need to think about? Do you have others in your community that might be at risk in the event that there's a storm? So we want to make sure that we're kind of thinking about not just ourselves, but the others, because response starts at the local level first, and sometimes that first responder might be the neighbor next door. I want to echo the comments about what happens after the storm passes. And so we shouldn't be so quick to kind of want to get out of the house, because sometimes the conditions just don't allow it. One of the biggest threats that we have are down power lines, and what we need to do is make sure that we give enough time for the local authorities to get out and make sure that things are safe. make sure that rescue operations that need to occur are not going to be hampered, and that we're able to have that 3 to 5 days of perishable food and water, so that if we are in a position where we have to be at home, we have what we need. The final thing I'll close with, again, we have tremendous state partners, and we work very closely with them in preparation of a storm. The things that you've heard today about the increases in our ability to forecast are really going to assist us. This FEMA team is focused on making sure that we're doing the things that we need to do to prepare for this season, and we're excited about the opportunity to continue to work with our partners here today.
Thank you, Rob. Before we move on to the Q&A portion of our news conference, I would like to reintroduce Matt Rosencrans, NOAA's lead hurricane seasonal forecaster. Thank you, Matt, for all your work over the years. And now we will open up the floor to questions and answers. For reporters in the room, please raise your hand, and a member of our team will bring the mic over to you. For those of you joining us virtually, a reminder, you may ask a question by using the Q&A feature in the virtual platform. My colleague Marissa Anderson will read those questions from our experts. If possible, let us know who your question is directed to. We will do our best to answer all the questions in the remaining time available. And now we'll kick it off with the first reporter question from the room. What you got? Yes, sir.
My question is for Dr. Jacobs.
This one?
Hi, my question is for Dr. Jacobs. You mentioned the use of AI starting to play more of a role this year. Where do you see that going in the coming years, and how much of a difference do you think it will make as we move forward?
So we're looking at AI in several different areas. When it comes to the full prediction of weather, we are looking at and operationally running end-to-end artificial intelligence-based prediction systems, which are trained on historical reanalysis. The important thing to know is that a lot of the historical reanalysis still uses a physics-based model to assimilate data. So whether we're talking physics-based or AI-based, these are all initial value problems. So we're never going to get away from the need to observe the atmosphere with these instruments. We're also using AI in the physics-based models to optimize some of the computations. So these physics-based models are millions of lines of code, and some of these parameterizations you can replicate with machine learning. All it does is replicate it, but it does it on a fraction of the compute. So there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained there. And then going further upstream, we're using AI as far as doing analysis and quality control on the observing systems themselves. So from the entire value chain, we're looking at using AI in different ways.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi there, Laurel Blanchard, Fox 35 News. From last year, what are the lessons learned kind of going into this season? Because last year, of course, we saw the rapid intensification of Melissa. A couple of P3 missions actually had to abort mission because of the intensity of that storm. And you mentioned in the 2026 outlook that it only takes one storm and rapid intensification is possible. So what are the lessons learned from 2025 that you're taking into 2026 season with that in mind?
Ken, do you want to take that one? Okay.
You brought up Hurricane Melissa, and I think I was thinking about it, Mike. I don't know if we ever talked about it, but you think about going to Jamaica with that storm and how it rapidly intensified. I mean, you talk about it only takes one. So move the Bermuda High over the Atlantic. How far, Mike? What do you think? 300, 400, 500 miles to the west. And then all of a sudden the storms curve a little closer to home. So you don't have to change a lot of the parameters to be able to get those storms in here. So that's why we always say, just make sure to make sure everybody has that early plan. So that's one of the biggest lessons learned is we just can't let our guard down. And I think, just back to some of the social science, you got to be able to remind the public, you have a season that wasn't as busy, or they hear the words below, or we don't have a storm. You can't predict when in the season, but if it's a late start, then people let their guard down. So the biggest lesson for me is just fortifying our messaging of that early preparedness. That everyone has to be ready, because it doesn't have to be a scramble at the last minute if everybody has a plan. Yep.
Thank you.
Ken, hang on a second. I'm gonna get you again. Sorry, but I'm gonna try to save you a couple of steps. Tony with West in Orlando. Very, very interested in FIMS, flood inundation mapping. We've had a couple 100-year storms now come across Central Florida. How do you see this being used and intricated in the daily forecasting, whether it be the local weather service offices or the Hurricane Center?
Yeah, it's a game changer. That's what you're hearing from emergency managers across the country, because visualization is everything. It's one thing to have a flood warning out. We traditionally in river flood forecasting, we use something called an E19. So it's based on history. What it was at this level on the river, you will get this flooding, the farm gets inundated, or this address, this building. But those are for one point. So each one of those was at the actual flood point. So think about that. I don't live at the flood point. So traditionally, that's the way we've done that. So to be able to have a depiction, an image that goes beyond those flood points, because that's where the gauge is a game changer, because now you can actually see it visibly. So this step's going to be, this will flood, this isn't flood. The next big thing that it's going to take time to get there. It's huge computationally, and it's also a complicated science. Eventually the next step will say, what's the depth? So it's one thing to say flood, not flood. That's huge. We'll take it, because you can save infrastructure. You keep infrastructure out of the waters. You can do evacuations, and guess what? Roadways. Because that's one thing that we have to talk about. The bigger the storm, a lot of times it's the earlier storm surge, earlier rain. You cut off those evacuation routes well before landfall. So that's why the early evacuations, early preparedness is everything. So that's the next big thing. So it's a game changer to be able to see that. And here's the last thing: days ahead of time. So you're not saying, oh, no, we have a flood warning, we're dealing with it in real time. You can get ahead of the game. To see something like that several days ahead of time, people have a chance to do something. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions from the room? Yes, sir.
Yes, hi. Andrew Shipatovsky with Wink News. We've seen terms already thrown around like Super Niño, and what does that mean, and what should that mean to some of the forecasters here?
Matt, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so in our official definitions, we're looking at a moderate to strong El Nino, and that'd be 1 degree centigrade in the middle of the Pacific. For a moderate, a strong event would be 1.5 degrees. So the super El Nino, we don't use that term officially, or we have our definition we've been using for a long time. But in those impact events from El Nino, when they do get strong, you reduce that wind shear, all the things that Neil and Ken talked about, right? You reduce that wind shear, you make it harder for those storms to develop, but it also does mean that some of those storms that do get closer to the coast can hit that warmer water, can hit a pocket of low shear, and then they can take off. So that's why being prepared for them, despite that high shear environment. Yep.
Yes, ma'am, over here.
This question could be for anyone. Brittany Gomez from Weatherbug. I live on the Florida West Coast, grew up here, and Milton, Helene were huge storms for the West Coast. People have lived here 30 plus years and have never seen anything like that in terms of the storm surge. And a huge problem that we faced was a lot of people didn't want to leave their homes on the coast because I've been through this storm, I've been through that storm, I can handle it, I'm not leaving my home. So what is your message on those people when it comes to not only this hurricane season, but ones going forward, where we get hurricanes and people don't really get the perspective of where they are relative to the storm impacts? Because we've had many storms impact the Florida West Coast, but none of them with the storm surge numbers that we saw from Milton and Helene.
Yeah, Ken, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, and I just appreciate that question because it gets into you've heard me mention social science 3 or 4 times, and what we have to do a better job making sure that it's one thing to say, hey, get ready for hurricane season, but you have to understand the specifics of why does a person choose not to evacuate, and there's real reasons. I mean, they will cite my pets. I don't want to leave the pets. Well, you work with the local community, you work with emergency management. There's solutions to that. There's others that I'm going to wait for the next forecast because it hasn't happened in a while. Maybe it'll change. Maybe, just crossing your fingers doesn't save your life. So you have to be able to be ready. The other part is there's the visualizations historically of evacuations, long lines of traffic and not knowing where to go. Again, I'm urging everybody, and I spent 4 years in Florida, so I talk to a lot of people and I hear these things. They vision that, but that's not the real case. They don't have to go far. So if you're on the west coast of Florida and you have one of these storms, that storm surge is very coastal. Now the wind, right? You have to think about a safe place for the wind, and you have the rainfall part of it. But the deadly part, the actual highest chance of fatalities, is that storm surge part of it. You don't have to get away very far. So where do you go? 5, 10, 20 miles. That's what we got to keep educating people on. They don't have to go to Atlanta if you live in Fort Myers, right? Go stay somewhere, maybe in Orlando, you'll be okay. So that part of it, it's more than just preparedness. It's the specifics of identifying why somebody doesn't evacuate and get to that. The other part is something's going to happen to my home, right? These are real things that people say. So we got to educate them. Yeah, that might happen, but it's not worth your life. And it's very difficult. And then there's the other part of it too. Some people can't. So, the reality is we spend a lot of time up here talking about have a preparedness kit and do different things. There are some folks that may not be able to afford that. Or some people that are worried about evacuating because they got to spend money in the hotel. So that's where they have to get with the local emergency manager, see where those shelters are. And there's a lot of resources out there, but they have to ask if that sort of thing. And the medicine, I'm telling you, that winter storm really hit me hard with some of the loss of life associated with medical. The dialysis was significant loss of life there. So I think there's an education, though. If you have special needs, there are resources, but do that now. Don't do it during a storm because everybody's busy, right? Do it now. Find out what those resources are. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Ken, good to see you. Chris with WPBF. I've got 3 challenges.
Yeah.
We've got new people that have infiltrated South Florida in our area. That's a challenge.
Yeah.
I've got complacency with older folks that have been in our area. And I've got Milton tornadoes that we had the most deadly and historic outbreak that we had in my viewing area. Do we have to go back to the basics and go back to square one to educate these folks? Because you have those newbies that have never been through a hurricane season before and don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I even poked fun at myself up here for repeating things. You can't repeat it enough. So yeah, every single time when you all out, and the media's out there, the Weather Service is out there, NOAA's out there doing the preparedness, going to schools, going to, reaching the folks that need us the most. Yes, you have to go with the basics, because let's face it, everybody in here, we know a lot about this, don't we? I don't think we assume some of the ground floor of knowledge all the time with some of the folks we're talking to. Does that make sense? I mean, we say all these things, but you do have to go back to the basics. So you have the new folks from all over the country that come here for the experience their first hurricane season, and the population keeps growing, so you have more and more of them, and of course the elderly. So I think the other thing too is I encourage. I got to say this the right way. I encourage us to be in the right places to reach the right audiences for preparedness, because often we speak to groups that are pretty weather savvy. Does that make sense? Are we at the homeowners associations? Are we talking to the people with pets? Are we talking to the elderly? Are we talking to the new people? How do we find venues to really identify those people that need us the most? Does that make sense? So I think we need to do better at those type of things. And we're not alone. It's the media, it's the Weather Service, it's FEMA, it's the emergency managers, state level across the country, and county and parish level as well. So we know. I guess the last thing is we knew who was losing their lives in hurricanes for decades. It was storm surge. We went after it. We went after the people that are losing their lives. So we have a storm surge watch and warning. We have inundation mapping. And guess what? It's no longer the leading cause of fatalities. It's more rip currents. It's inland flooding. So when we know who's losing their lives, we know where to attack. Does that make sense? And that's where we need to focus. Yep.
Great. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks. Dinah Pulver, USA Today. I have a question probably for Ken and for Matt, and it's kind of a multi-part question. With the such warmer than normal temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico, or excuse me, the Gulf of America, what does that mean for this hurricane season, given that the Gulf can be a wild card when there's an El Nino? So if you could talk about what we can expect from the Gulf given the El Nino, and I think people don't realize that it could be different than what they see in the Atlantic development region. And on top of that, this extreme rainfall that we've seen come up through the Gulf into the inland states that really probably don't think as much about hurricanes as we do on the coast. What's the message to those people who live in, northern Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, about what they can see from these oncoming landfalling, if we, even if we get just one?
Go for it, Matt.
Yeah, so the Gulf is even still warm from last year. We didn't have any storms in the Gulf. That does contribute to the overall outlook because we look at the entire temperature of the Atlantic. But you're right, most of the effects of El Nino are deep in the tropics. So you won't have those long run-ups, those long storm tracks. You could get those storms in the Gulf that have the short awareness times. So that's why this early preparation now is really key. Right? Do it now. Again, Ken said there's the beautiful white clouds out in the sky right now, to do it now. But the Gulf, you can end up with more of those storms, at different times of the year, right? Normal, June and July is when you get most of the Gulf storms, but then you can have them throughout the season, especially during El Nino seasons where you have that, that's where the pocket is more favorable compared to the entire Atlantic.
Just to really double down on the inland message, please print it in bold, please increase the font. You don't have to be along the coast to be in danger from the impacts of a tropical system. And we've seen it over and over. I could name how many storms, I can go over and over. I look at Hurricane Camille, even back in the 60s. Most of the fatalities were in Virginia. That was a strong storm. And you look at storms that hit from the Gulf Coast into Louisiana, but then we lose people in Virginia or New York City. Remember that? So you think about the inland dangers. These dangers are hundreds to even 1,000 miles well inland. So we've got to keep reminding people, you can think you're inland Tennessee, Virginia, the northeast United States. Even a distant storm with a landfall 1,000 miles away can cause some big impacts. So we need everyone ready. And I think people feel pretty immune inland. Go back to Helene. Just go back and look at some of the pictures, go look at some of the impacts there. And the other part, I guess, relates to several questions. We've got to remind people just because it hasn't happened before doesn't mean it's not going to happen this time or next time, because every storm is completely different.
All right, we're going to take some questions from those participating virtually as well. I'll turn it over to Marissa Anderson for a couple of those readouts.
Thank you, Kim, and thanks to everyone online for their questions. And I may paraphrase or combine some questions in the interest of time. Given the likelihood for a strong El Nino, is there a stronger chance for landfalling storms in the mid-Atlantic to New England?
Matt?
So we are expecting that, moderate to strong El Nino, but this forecast does not contain landfall information right now. That's an active area we're researching. I have a summer intern coming in to do some really high-tech, high-speed work on it. And using the high-res seasonal forecast system, we're going to be able to dig into that data. But there is, that's not something we can do now. So Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, prepare just as if one could make a landfall, right? Especially, in the seasons where it could be busy in that area.
Matt, I have another question for you. When was the last time you favored a below normal season? And how does this year's 55% compare to past years?
So the last time we had forecast for below was 2015. During the last big strong, moderate to strong El Nino, where that Niño value got to about 1.9. So that was the last time we started with a May outlook for below normal. 55%, right? Like, we run hundreds of model simulations, millions of compute hours, looking at statistics that go all the way back to even the mid 1800s for some of these. So when we run all those simulations, run all our calibrations on it, right? And there's AI-based calculations in there for part of them. That's what we come up with. We've had years where we've had stronger probabilities and lower probabilities. There's a good bit of uncertainty from the West African monsoon this year. Is that going to be very supportive, or is that going to be more of in a less supportive phase? Can some of that counteract the detrimental effects to storms from the El Nino? Right, so we've calculated all those uncertainties in there, and that's why we come up with the 55%.
I have another question for you, Matt. Is the season probability referring to the likelihood that the season is above, near, below normal season activity?
So the 55% chance of below, that's season probability, right? Like we talk about the category with the most probability, so 55% chance of below, so we'll say a below normal season. But yes, it refers to the entire seasonal activity June 1st to November 30th for the entire Atlantic basin, not any specific sub-portion of it or any specific period of time.
All right, and we'll take one more question.
Since El Nino is strengthening as the hurricane season goes on, could that change the distribution of storms?
And your steps in that.
Right. So one thing that we have noted, right, robust in the statistics of this, are that during El Nino years you get less storms in November, and then less storms overall. Those are the associations with El Nino. Timing within a season, is it most of them going to come during August or September or anything like that? That it doesn't really give you any information on that. So you've got to be prepared now for that season, right? You could end up with an early season storm and then not much later, and then the total is the same, right? So it's really taking that time to do it now and prepare. So.
That's all we have time for today. For those with additional questions, feel free to reach out to our public affairs team at nws.pa@noaa.gov, and they will help get those questions answered for you. Thank you to our speakers, Rear Admiral Chad Carey, NOAA Administrator Dr. Neil Jacobs, National Weather Service Director Ken Graham, and FEMA Acting Region 4 Regional Administrator Rob Ash, and NOAA's lead hurricane season forecaster, Matt Rosencrans. A reminder that the news release from today's announcement is available at noaa.gov, and a recording of the event will also be added to that news release later this afternoon. That concludes today's press conference. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day.